The legal profession is a community, and it's a community in which no one is truly alone. So no matter how difficult the problem, no matter how sticky the dilemma, mentorship and seeking out the counsel of colleagues, of friends, sometimes of total strangers, is the lawyer's first resource for working through any problem of professionalism.
For me, it's enormously important that young lawyers look for examples that they can turn to, both for learning by doing, learning by watching what is done by others, but also learning by discussion. And whether those are senior lawyers in the same firm, if one's in a large firm, senior lawyers in a law association, if one's in a smaller center with a law association, or a peer group of friends that one's gone through law school with who are sharing the same problems as they work their way into the profession. Talking about these issues in a practical context where a problem has actually arisen in a particular file, I think is enormously important, and there are various solutions. I don't think there's any magic bullet, but it seems to me it's important for young lawyers to be aware that there are a variety of options to be turned to for advice, and advice is vital in those circumstances.
And I think for young lawyers, they may not be aware how willing senior lawyers practicing in this city and elsewhere will really step up to help young lawyers. I've had a number of friends or peers or acquaintances at my age and stage who have called either to me or through me to the senior lawyers here, and have come in and had a chance to sit down for 45 minutes and just talk about a really thorny question.
I have to say that I can think of some specific moments where I sort of took a leap of faith. To give you an example, I mentioned when I started my own law practice, I literally picked up the phone and asked lawyers who I didn't know, more senior lawyers, if I could have lunch with them. And some of them thought I was out to lunch, and what business did I have calling them? And so you have to have a bit of a thick skin. And others were incredibly welcoming and said, you know, come and have lunch, come and have a coffee with me. I'll tell you in 10 minutes or a half an hour or an hour what I do and what I did, and take it or leave it, what you learn from there. So I think that it was, it felt like a scary experience, a leap of faith, but it was rewarded by getting to know someone better, realizing that for every senior lawyer and person who seems to be doing incredibly well in this profession, they started from somewhere, they made mistakes, they did certain things right and wrong, and it's people think there's some sort of certain path or some huge advantage that other people have had. Some people do have those advantages, but I think for the most part, we have an excellent profession in Ontario, relatively egalitarian, where I think you still have the opportunity, with some courage and a bit of luck, I guess, to get ahead.
I have to say that the formal training, and certainly in the bar admissions course, the 2 hours you spend on the rule, or at the time anyway, the 2 hours we spent on the rules of professional conduct probably had the least impact on my sense of what would be appropriate behavior and what wouldn't be. A lot of it came from my own sort of personal judgment, but a lot of it also came from the first, I would say, 2 years of practice, my articling year, and then the first year as an associate.
If I was really in doubt, I would call the Law Society and the Practice Advisory and say, what should I do in this situation? What are my options? So I wasn't afraid to do that. I wasn't afraid to say I don't know, and talk to more senior people. So you have to know that that is an option that you have, and you have to use it.
Somehow developing your network, whether it's small or large, is absolutely important. It's a survival mechanism in this profession, but it's also just a way of enjoying the profession more, I think. So I think from a fairly early point in my career, I enjoyed doing things outside of just my own firm, whether that's the Bar Association or the Law Society, or any opportunity to speak or to write. And I think what those opportunities do is that they allow you to meet other lawyers at your station in life or more senior. And there are times when I would sort of pick up the phone and, without mentioning names of a partner, just talk about whether I was going batty or whether what I was being asked to do made sense. And I think that continues to this day. It's not a question of just being senior or junior, although I think when you're a bit more junior, you need to do that some more. But having that resource, or feeling at least that it's out there if you need it, is a huge relief, I think, for anyone when they're being asked to do work under pressure that's not absolutely clear in terms of direction.
Once the lawyer has spotted the issue, it's important to really step back and say, do I need some guidance? Do I need someone to think this through with me? Someone who can bring a different perspective or many more years of practice to it. And talking about it and being open about it is really, really important.
I would think in most towns and cities there are formal groups of either young lawyers or female lawyers, bar association type groups. But in my own experience, it was the informal associations that ended up proving to be more beneficial. I mean, other women who were in very similar stages of life as I was, we found each other, and we ended up sort of networking and communicating on our own and supporting one another because we were facing many of the same situations, albeit in different firms in the city. And those were very important.
I'm of South Asian origin, for instance, and as I said, I'm about 15 years out, and so over the last 15 years I have seen a very significant improvement in terms of the diversity of the profession, just sort of visually when I attend conferences or I attend things professionally. But I must say that it is still sometimes surprising to me when, let's say, I walk into a conference of 200 people and I see two or three other non-white lawyers. It's a feeling that's hard to describe, but I think one could appreciate it on any dimension. If you're a particular religious background or a particular ethnic background, you sort of, I think, subconsciously or consciously need to have examples, need to have mentors, need to see someone who has succeeded, because it forges a path for you. I think, first of all, we have to recognize that sort of what I call the diversity within the diversity. So when we say, just using example, South Asian communities, I would say I'd like to use the term communities because really there are different experiences by, for instance, older lawyers that were trained in a different jurisdiction and then came down and been retrained, and in my sense is that they may still feel much more the outsider than someone like me who, from, although I'm an immigrant to this country, I came here when I was almost 12, essentially grew up in Canada, feel incredibly integrated, feel incredibly Canadian. My first language is English. So I think we have to sort of recognize those challenges. I believe you're a better person or a better lawyer when you can be more authentic to where you came from and not feel that that is something you have to sort of cover up to be a good lawyer. In fact, it's the opposite way, that people celebrate you when you're just honest and authentic and say, well, my experience is a bit different, but here's what it is. I don't find, for the most part, that people are offended by that. They are interested in that. Sometimes they're a little uncomfortable with that. They need to learn more, but it's kind of a welcoming thing.